Now this was a good fight. Chris Eubank Jr. wins by TKO in the 10th round, with the doctor calling an end to the fight due to a large swelling over the eye of Nick Blackwell. And I've got to give credit where it's due. I gave Chris Eubank Jr. every single round of this fight, barring a single round, and that was a round that Eubank Jr. pretty much just took off in the middle of the fight. A very dominant performance from Chris Eubank Jr. He won well, he won with style, and I just felt he was the better fighter in the vast majority of the rounds. We know that Chris Eubank Jr. is a very eye-catching puncher, but he was landing everything here. Great shots to the body. The uppercut was landed repeatedly. I don't know why Blackwell and his team hadn't spent weeks and weeks and weeks in the gym preparing an uppercut defence. It's sort of the first thing you plan to do when you fight a guy like Chris Eubank Jr., but for whatever reason they didn't. Blackwell showed heart of a lion, balls of steel, whatever cliche you want to use. Great determination to stay in there, and I firmly believe he would have gone 12 had it not been for that swelling on his eye. And who can blame the referee, the doctor, for waving it off, given the sustained beating that he was taking during the fight. Chris Eubank Jr., this was a sort of typical Chris Eubank Jr. performance. Lots of charisma in the ring, lots of style, lots of flamboyant, powerful shots. A little bit of inaccuracy, a bit wild at times, throwing a few uppercuts early when Blackwell was more on his game and missing it. Eubank Jr. was still getting tagged once or twice, including one notable time when he was taunting Billy Joe Saunders at the side of the ring, and Nick Blackwell almost, well, I'm not going to say almost knocked him down. He didn't almost knock him down, but he caught him hard with a hook that knocked Eubank Jr.'s gum seal slightly out of place. But yeah, it was don't get me wrong, it was a dominant performance from Eubank Jr., but there were still things to work on there in terms of the accuracy and the defence. It was very much a case of Eubank Jr. fighting in spurts, which we've seen him done before. You know, he'd fight very aggressively, very actively for a minute, then he'd maybe put a bit of distance between himself and his man, and we saw him up against the ropes at times in this fight. He'd kind of put on a surge, throw huge rounds of haymakers at Blackwell, and then do nothing for a minute, and Blackwell would be able to force him back against the ropes. And Blackwell I thought was being a bit mistaken by throwing power punches, and Eubank Jr. was slipping them and using his head movement. For me, Blackwell would have been better off to start banking double jabs to the body. Head was moving a lot, body moving not so much maybe. I felt Blackwell wasted quite a few opportunities. When that was the case, he was getting his opponent up against the ropes, but just not scoring well enough when he got them there. And that was disappointing from my perspective. But Blackwell looked small in there. He didn't appear to have the reach and the range of Chris Eubank Jr. When both guys were jabbing, it seemed to be Chris Eubank Jr.'s jab that was landing. Blackwell, even though he was landing the odd nice shot on Chris Eubank Jr., didn't seem to have the power and the snap of Jr. in his work. Whilst it was a real credit to Blackwell, this performance, and it showed his heart and his determination, you got to say that Chris Eubank Jr. showed he was a level above. And recent fights against Spike O'Sullivan, now against Blackwell, so that Eubank Jr. is above British level. Whether he's quite world level yet with his defensive frailties, I'm not so sure. He's certainly entertaining, and performances like this, believe me to think that at this point he's certainly operating at European level at least. It's probably the best performance of Eubank Jr.'s career tonight. I think I'd say, given the context that it's probably the second best opponent he's ever been in with, if you take the Billy Joe Saunders fight out of the equation. Let me just say on a sideline, I thought that Billy Joe Saunders getting in the ring and putting the belt above Chris Eubank Sr. and Billy Joe Saunders pre-fight commentary where he thinks Blackwell would win with ease, I thought that was comedy gold. It's clearly Billy Joe hyping up a fight for the summer, and let's hope that happens, because that would be a great fight based on this. But yeah, very entertaining fight. Credit to Nick Blackwell for his heart. Credit to Chris Eubank Jr. for his performance. Chris Eubank Jr., he does what he does in there, but he does it very well indeed. Let me know your thoughts. How do you rate both guys after this? Many thanks for watching.